For decades, she played the role of the loyal ex, the quiet supporter, the woman who never spoke out no matter what was happening around her. But after the latest documents dropped, insiders say she's considering a move so explosive it could rewrite everything the public thinks they know. And if she follows through, it won't just be a scandal, it'll be a downfall. Because here's what makes this story so unsettling. They didn't just stay friendly after their divorce, they stayed close in a way that raised eyebrows for years, living under the same roof, protecting each other, moving like two people tied together by secrets instead of love. And now, with new attention surrounding old connections, her name is being pulled back into the same storm all over again. Some sources claim she feels backed into a corner, that staying silent has only damaged her image further, and that for the first time in a long time, she may be ready to stop protecting him. And if she really does go rogue, as insiders are suggesting, the details she could reveal might be the kind of thing no one can take back once it's out. So what changed? Why now? And what exactly could she know after all these years? Because the truth is, the most dangerous person in a scandal is never the outsider. It's the one who stayed close enough to see everything. The divorce was supposed to be the end. In 1996, their marriage officially collapsed under the weight of scandal, headlines, and public embarrassment. Most couples in that position disappear from each other's lives. They separate assets, they build distance, they move on. But that's not what happened here. Instead, something unusual unfolded. They stayed connected, not just friendly, not just co-parents. They continued living under the same roof at Royal Lodge for years, publicly divorced, privately intertwined. To the outside world, it looked almost admirable, a modern arrangement, two adults rising above the past for the sake of family. But behind the polished smiles and carefully worded interviews, questions lingered. Why remain that close after such a public downfall? What held them together when the marriage itself could not? The person who stays close often sees more than anyone else. And in this case, she wasn't just nearby, she was inside the walls, inside the daily routines, inside the aftermath of every damaging headline that followed him. While scrutiny around his friendships began to intensify in the early 2000s, she remained publicly supportive. No dramatic statements, no visible cracks, just quiet loyalty. But loyalty can be a double-edged sword, because as his controversies grew louder, so did the whispers about who knew what and when. Every resurfaced photograph, every resurfaced connection, every uncomfortable interview, the spotlight didn't just land on him, it drifted toward anyone still standing beside him, and she was still standing there. At first, that closeness looked like strength. Then it started to look like complicity. Fair or not, public opinion doesn't wait for full evidence. It draws lines quickly. And over time, that shared household began to feel less like a sign of unity and more like a shared liability. Because when one name sinks in scandal, anyone tied closely to it risks being pulled under too. And that's where the story takes a darker turn, because the resurfaced files didn't just revive old suspicions, they reignited a connection many believed had already faded into the background. For a while, it seemed like the worst of it had passed. The headline slowed, the public outrage cooled, the story faded into the background of a monarchy already juggling too many controversies. But scandals tied to powerful circles rarely disappear completely. They wait. And then the new files dropped. Freshly unsealed documents connected to Jeffrey Epstein's network began circulating again, pulling old names back into the spotlight. Images resurfaced, email exchanges were re-examined. Associations that once felt distant suddenly felt immediate, and once again his name appeared. But this time hers wasn't far behind. Among the material were references and communications that linked her to the same orbit, not accusations of wrongdoing, but enough to drag her back into a narrative she may have believed was long buried. In cases like this, inclusion alone can be damaging. Guilt isn't required for reputations to fracture. Proximity is enough. He has consistently denied any misconduct, and being mentioned in documents does not automatically imply involvement in illegal activity. That distinction matters. But public perception doesn't always operate on legal standards. It operates on suspicion, and suspicion spreads fast. What makes these files significant isn't just what they show, it's what they revive. Old questions, old photographs, old interviews that critics say never fully satisfied the public. For years, she stood beside him while those questions intensified, but with this latest release, insiders claim something shifted. Because when documents resurface long after you believed the chapter was closed, it forces a reckoning. Did she know everything? Was she told the full story? Or was she trusting someone who wasn't being completely transparent? Those questions may never be answered publicly, but behind the scenes, they may be fueling a very different conversation. And if the pressure from these files is what finally pushed her to reconsider her silence, then what comes next could be far more destabilizing than the documents themselves. This is usually the moment in scandals like this when someone breaks. Not because they suddenly grow a conscience, not because they wake up one morning and decide to do the right thing, but because they realize the damage is no longer contained. And according to insiders, that's exactly where she is now. The reports claim she feels backed into a corner, like she's reached the point where staying silent doesn't protect her anymore. It only makes her look worse, like she's choosing the fallout, like she's accepting the blame. And in a story built on suspicion, silence can start to sound like agreement. What's being suggested is darker than a simple PR problem. It's the idea that she spent years shielding him, trusting his reassurances, defending him quietly while the world turned hostile. And now, looking back at the timeline, she allegedly feels anger growing, not just at the public, but at him, because hindsight changes everything. When you revisit events with new information, the past stops looking like bad luck and starts looking like a pattern. And insiders say she's questioning whether she was ever given the full picture, or whether she was used as a buffer, someone who could soften the blow, absorb the criticism, and keep the image intact. But that protective role comes with a price. Her own credibility has taken hits over the years. Her name, her reputation, her standing, all of it tied to choices that may not have been fully hers. And now, as this scandal resurfaces yet again, she's allegedly facing a brutal reality. If the public is going to judge her anyway, then she might as well defend herself with the truth. Because in the end, loyalty only works when it goes both ways. And if she truly believes she was left to carry consequences alone, then the next move wouldn't be reconciliation, it would be retaliation. And that's where the story shifts from awkward association to a potential betrayal that could expose far more than anyone expected. When reputations crack, opportunities appear, and in this case, the offers reportedly aren't small. Behind the scenes, publishing insiders are said to be circling quiet conversations, serious numbers, the kind of figures that can change someone's future overnight. According to reports, substantial sums are being floated for a tell-all account, one that would finally explain what she saw, what she was told, and what she chose to believe. Because controversy sells, and few stories carry more weight than someone from inside the circle deciding to speak. But this isn't just about clearing a name. There's another layer to the pressure: money. For years, questions have followed her finances, reports of mounting expenses, ongoing property issues, the high cost of maintaining a certain lifestyle long after official roles were stripped away. Financial strain doesn't just create stress, it creates leverage. When you're facing limited options and someone places a life-changing contract on the table, the moral debate becomes complicated. Loyalty starts competing with survival. Silence starts looking expensive. And insiders suggest that's the crossroads she may be standing at now. On one side, decades of shared history, family ties, and an unspoken code of discretion. On the other, the chance to reclaim control of her narrative and secure financial stability in the process. If she believes her own credibility has already been damaged, then protecting someone else may no longer feel worth the cost. Because in high-profile scandals, the first one to tell their story often shapes the truth the public remembers. And if she decides to accept one of those offers, it wouldn't just be a book release, it would be a declaration, a signal that the silence is over. And if that happens, the fallout won't stay contained within private walls. If she decides to speak, the damage won't unfold quietly, it would detonate. Because full disclosure in a case like this doesn't just add details, it reshapes the narrative. For years, the public has relied on interviews, official statements, carefully worded denials. But someone who lived inside the story could challenge all of that in a single chapter. And once that door opens, it can't be closed. A tell-all wouldn't just affect one man's already battered reputation. It would ripple outward into old friendships, private meetings, financial arrangements, and decisions made behind palace walls. Even if no new crimes are revealed, new context alone could reignite outrage. Public trust, once fractured, doesn't repair easily, and the monarchy has already endured years of scrutiny. Another wave of explosive claims, especially from someone once considered loyal, could amplify doubts about accountability and transparency at the highest levels. Then there's the personal fallout. Family dynamics would shift overnight. Long-standing alliances could fracture. Private conversations could become public debate. And if she frames herself as someone misled or kept in the dark, the moral weight shifts dramatically. Because people forgive mistakes, they don't forgive deception. If she presents herself as someone who defended him without knowing the full truth, sympathy could swing in her direction, and scrutiny could intensify around him once again. But there's a risk. When you decide to expose secrets, you invite scrutiny of your own past too. Every photo, every email, every decision gets re-examined. The public doesn't just listen, it investigates. So the real question isn't just what she might reveal, it's whether she's prepared for what will be revealed about her in return. Because once someone inside the circle decides to talk, the story stops being controlled. And in scandals built on silence, that's when the real unraveling begins. So what do you think? Is she preparing to protect herself or preparing to expose everything? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read them all, and I want to know where you stand on this. If you found this breakdown insightful, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next deep dive. These stories move fast, and when the next update drops, you'll want to see it first. Because in cases like this, the truth doesn't stay buried forever.